This week we would continue last week's conversation with some of the lessons that we've learned over, our long careers. Just kidding. But yeah, some of the lessons that we've learned kind of from being in the workplace, from leaving uni for both of us and going into full-time work. Some of the things that we've learned. So what was your experience like? Like, how was it transitioning from full-time education to work?
I'm glad it's in the past, to be honest. It was hard, to be fair. So at uni, I did 4 years because I did a year abroad and I worked on my year abroad. So it was hard coming back to education after that. But then at the end of university, I didn't have a job beforehand, like, with grad schemes and stuff, how some people have them straight lined up or ready to go.
You're looking at me.
Yeah. I was like, some people, oh yeah, this one.
I got on to my grad scheme. I got the call the day before I graduated.
Yeah, so I wasn't one of those. And I didn't really know what I wanted to go into, and there wasn't like a specific path, like, with some degrees you have a specific thing to go into after. So I was just a bit like, not really sure. Just travelled for a bit, to be honest, and then moved back in with my parents and was like, don't really know what to do. Was looking online, couldn't really find anything, a few interviews here and there, and then I finally got something after working part-time, and I guess, well, that's what I've been in for the last few years, so it's been good.
I was just gonna ask, like, how was it actually, like, settling into working, if that makes sense?
Yeah, once I was there, to be honest, I found it fine. Everyone kept being like, oh, you're picking this up really quickly, I'm surprised with how quickly you picked this up and stuff, and I was just like, I'm just doing what you told me, and I guess it's just a role that plays to my strengths, so that was good. And I enjoyed it. It was kind of weird working with people who aren't at the same stage of life as you. There was like, for example, if you're doing a graduate scheme, there's a few other graduates who start with you, and there wasn't for me. So it was all like, people who are older than me who had their own children, and people, some even had kids my age, and I'm just there like, oh hey, I was just starting off work. And I remember I think it was my first week, I spoke to this lady like, oh, how long have you been here then, making some chit chat in the kitchen, and she said, oh, something like, 15 years now or something like that. And I was like, oh, you must really enjoy it then for you to have been here for that much time. And she was like, yeah, not really. I was like, yikes. Wow. I was just like,
red flag.
Swiftly ended the conversation. I was like, okay, right, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I found that as well. So although, I did a grad scheme, actually with my grad scheme, we were all placed in different organisations. So I wasn't necessarily working day to day with people my age. And I think that was a big change because, uni, you have like mature students and stuff like that. But,
basically everyone's in the same kind of boat as you,
Yeah, everyone's at uni.
Yeah.
But, outside of work, everyone's doing their own thing, everyone's doing something different. So I think that was definitely like, it was a change, but it wasn't like a big adjustment, if that makes sense.
I think for me it was like how to get the balance between like being cordial with people and getting to know people and stuff like that, and others getting to know you, but at the same time you're not best friends with these people like right off the bat. And I think I found it hard to like figure out, these are my work colleagues, and the professionalism versus the like having a joke and stuff like that. I found that quite hard to navigate at the start, but I guess especially, because everyone's different, so some people are very much formal, they don't really say much about themselves out of work. Some people, everything, like there's a lady that I'm thinking of at my work, and she'd be telling you everything basically that's going on, and
there's always one, I feel like, in every office.
So it was just like, where do I have my balance? Like, just figuring that out, I think.
Yeah, I always remember Dad like saying to us growing up, well, actually, I guess really when we kind of started working, like, make sure that you do the social events, make sure that, people actually know you as you. And I remember always kind of being like, okay, yeah, go do the social events, I get it. But now that I've actually started, you know, full-time work, I'm kind of a bit like, oh, okay, I understand why he actually used to say that all the time, because I'm very much someone who likes to not compartmentalize my life, but I like to have work people, like my friends. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I like it all separate. Like,
yeah.
And I don't know why, to be honest, in some ways, but at the same time, I guess it's, you know, where you stand with people. Like you were saying, sometimes it's like, okay, are we friends? Are we work colleagues? And it's actually okay to be both.
Yeah.
I think it's something that I've realised, that and at work it's so important to have your almost allies. It's important to have the people that remind you that you are actually sane, and like that you can just go to and just, you know, rant about a meeting that you just had or something. Actually, that's so important to have those people at work.
So you say that, and I know one person specifically that I'm thinking of who you see as your ally in work, and I think that was more because of her. But how do you make allies in work that you can just rant to and it's like fine? Do you get what I mean? You can't just rant to everyone.
No, you can't. But I think it's the same way that you build relationship in any situation, you know. So automatically you gravitate towards people who you have some type of commonality. That's what we do in life, right? And I think that you naturally find people. You can't force it. You can't force relationships. But so for me, with the person that I think you're talking about, it was the fact that we work in the same area. So it was naturally we spent a lot of time together. But then within conversations, actually like ask people how they are, actually have an interest in people's lives. Because I think that, yeah, you can get through work with not knowing people and not really making any type of connections with other people, but at the same time I think that it's so much richer if you actually just have fun with people and enjoy being around people. For me in my job, the people are, I guess, the best and the worst part of it. I think
I'm sure that's the same with most jobs. I was going to
say with most jobs probably, but actually if I'm in a meeting with people that I get on really well with, the meeting is much more enjoyable than people I don't really know, for example.
True.
So yeah, just make an effort with people. I think that it goes back to just adult relationships in general. Sometimes you just have to make an effort if you want to have friends.
I think that's, well, I guess what I know why you said adult relationships, but it is the point with anything, because, you know, as kids or whatever, and this is going back to the conversation you had with Maya and Andrea, but you are making the effort because you're like including them in the games and stuff. It's just, it feels more of a big deal when you're an adult. I don't know why. I guess you're just thinking of more things that are going on. But
I guess work is the only place, well, not necessarily the only place, but is a place where, okay, you are there for a lot of people day in, day out. But with relationships as a kid, I mean, most of us like had friends in school, right? And it's because you're with them day in, day out. You literally don't have a choice but to be around these people.
Yeah.
Whereas I think as an adult, you have a lot more choice in who you actually spend your days with, I guess. Okay, so work, yeah, okay, I have certain colleagues. I can't just pick and choose. Like, I'm not going to talk to you today. I wish I could sometimes, but you know, we can't necessarily do that. But the amount that I actually go to them for help, for example, and stuff like that does make a difference. But then I think it is also that professionalism versus personal relationship, and I guess that they're not mutually exclusive, but yeah, it's just getting to know people a bit more. And I think that actually a lot of the workplace almost dictates that, is in the workplace culture that exists there.
Yeah.
But then also it's remembering that we make the culture as well, and that we have like an impact on it.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's kind of what you're saying makes me think of, you know, people saying about having boundaries and kind of figuring out how you want things to work. But I guess I was just thinking about that in terms of time as well, because as you were saying, work is where people spend most of their waking day, or most of the waking week, I guess. Yeah, so it's, you know, those are the people you're with all the time, but not just the actual people. It's doing the work you're doing. That's what you're doing with most of your waking hours in a week. And yeah, obviously we're thinking about people who are working full time and, you know, maybe the typical 9 to 5, as they say. I don't think anyone actually does work 9 to 5, but anyway.
If you do, let me know which job you're doing.
Yeah. But also that's another thing, I think, making boundaries in terms of how much time you're spending at work. And I think that's something, especially with working from home, that I've just not being as good as I should be with it, because it's easy to just be like, oh, I'll just send a few more emails, or or I can just finish this off quickly and it doesn't really matter, I don't have my commute now, so it's fine, or I have a bit more time than before, or whatever it might be. Maybe not even to do with like, oh, it doesn't matter because of the time wise, maybe it's just like, oh, I can easily just check up on that whilst I'm making dinner or watching TV or whatever it might be. But you can slip into these kind of patterns of giving more, and I don't think it's a bad thing to do more than you're expected at work. In fact, I think that's good. I think it is good to have like other things apart from just your actual work itself. So there might be, I don't know, a committee that you could join, or like, that sounds really boring, but there might be other things. Like there was a lady who's kind of like the social sec of our work office, so she would like organize the things that we used to do together out of the workplace and things like that. So there's always things that you can get involved in that aren't your main job description, and I think it's good to do those, because number one, and linked to what you were saying with getting to know people, it opens up doors, it opens up opportunities. The more that people know you and you know other people, then if a job came up that would be in an area that you're looking to move into, or like people just think you would be good for something, or it's word of mouth, your name, I guess, gets out there a bit more, and you might be considered for things that you otherwise wouldn't have been if people didn't know that you were maybe interested in something and things like that. So I think it's got benefits in terms of networking side of things, but even just to understand your company or organization better, rather than just doing your sole job, at least seeing or understanding a bit of what other people do around you always helps to just know your job better, I guess. I don't know, what do you think?
I was thinking about the fact that for me, with boundaries, it's not so much that, and it's not so much the extra stuff that I need boundaries around, it's the actual work. Because we were joking about like whoever actually has 9 till 5, like, let me know. But it's the fact that actually the stuff that is kind of expected on me, actually park that point because I'll come back to that later, but the stuff that is kind of, I guess, within my remit doesn't necessarily fit into the time that I'm supposed to actually be working. Definitely. So it's more kind of like actually at the end of the day, leaving, like switching off my computer and being like, that's it, we're done. Because I just have a tendency to, as you were saying, especially like since we moved to working from home, to just stay on, just do this little bit more, this little bit extra. But I kind of said come back to that point, because I realised that a lot of the expectation that I think exists is actually on me, and I really cannot come and kill myself. So it's kind of like,
I can't come and kill myself.
Exactly. So actually sometimes I just have to say no and just hold boundaries with people. It's like, I'm not doing that. But also just with myself and understanding, okay, I might be the most suitable person to do this, but does that mean that I should do it? Not necessarily. And I think actually coming with that comes having, so I have a really, really good relationship with my manager, to the point that the other day I was basically just like, I'm really not feeling it today, for various reasons. And she was kind of like, okay, it was like towards the end of the day, she's like, I think you should just log out after this meeting and just get ready for tomorrow, basically, is what she said. Nice. But I think that your relationship with, as we were saying, the people that you work with, but also like line management and stuff like that is so, so important. So like, thankfully I've had really good managers, and being able to have those kind of conversations where I'm just like, you know what, there's just too much work right now, and I like being asked to do this piece of work, and okay, like we're gonna have to look at what I can actually do, and not feeling bad about that, because that for me was really hard, especially when I started working, like within my first year of working. I found it really hard to do that, because I almost felt like there was this expectation of me to be able to do everything, and that I don't think failing is the right word, but just something wasn't right if I couldn't pick up everything that was asked of me. But people are selfish. So sometimes it's kind of like, okay, I'm being asked to do this work, but that person can actually do it. And it doesn't mean that I should take it on just because I can, and technically maybe that is within my remit to do.
It's funny when you were saying about, that person can actually do it, but they're kind of asking you to do it, because in my role of work, there's like sometimes people will say, oh, could you do this or could you do that, where actually they have access to the systems or they're able to do it themselves, but they just either don't know how, they can't be bothered, it's whatever. And I remember someone telling me, you can give a man a fish or you can teach them to fish, and I was like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Sometimes it is easier to just do it and then be like, here you go, but actually at the end of the day, if you show somebody how to do that thing, if they're able to do it, then they won't have to keep coming back to you each time that they need to do it. And so it's I guess just thinking about how to be like make the most of your time. I guess it's time efficiency, but not just in the short term, it's in the longer term as well, and being more like, how can you evolve your processes to make sure that you're making the most of your time and doing things well. But I'm going into like economics side of things. I was just like,
these words you're using.
I listened to myself and I'm like, let's move the conversation on.
I thought you were going to say something about that point.
No. Oh. I was just saying about, it's just what I said anyway, being efficient. And I think it helps you not burn out or be weighed down, especially I think, well, with our jobs anyway, it's very much like,
I just realised I'm swearing at the camera. Oops, sorry guys.
Okay. Moving swiftly on. What was I saying? Oh, yes. No. I can't remember.
Yes. No.
Like, so I can't remember.
You were talking about oh, I really had it, but now I don't have it either.
So yeah, I was saying, because trying to figure out ways to work more efficiently helps when you have so much work, because in both of our roles it's kind of like the work is never ending, there's always so much to do, and probably the amount to do is more than we can do ourselves or our teams can do,
probably.
So it's like, how can we be efficient to help the processes move, so that you don't feel so burnt out and always like you're lagging behind rather than kind of in front of things or on top of things. Because I think in my role anyway, for me, I've found it easy to feel like I'm almost drowning in stuff and you don't even know where to look or what to start on, and I've been there before and it's just like, it's not very nice. So trying to figure out, okay, what's the important and urgent, and figuring out deadlines, what do you need to do first, what do you need to focus on, what can you let go of for a little bit for now and pick up later, and a delegation as well, like you were saying, when people are coming to you with stuff which they could do themselves, or things like that.
Do you know what it is? It's a catch-22, right? Because you do your job well and people keep asking you to do stuff, but then you don't do your job well, you don't got a job. What am I supposed to do here? Like, one of my colleagues always jokes like, oh no, like if someone asks me to do something, I'll just do it really badly so they don't come and ask me again. And I'm like, that's great, but you're in a managerial role. Like,
oh, wow.
She's joking, of course, but it is true. It's like you do your job well, and that means that, I mean, because you probably have more capacity to be able to do your job well, that memes that you do get asked to do more things. But sometimes it's like, I don't want to be the good one. I just want to be the mediocre one who just gets through the day. Do you know what I mean?
Go out.
Do you know what I mean? But no, I think being a person of excellence and wanting to do things with excellence is a really good thing. But what I found was that with work, I had to be really careful about that, and I had to really put boundaries in. And I mean, I'm saying that I'm talking about it like I figured it all out, and trust me, I haven't, hence me complaining to my boss this week, like, it's too much. But actually, it is about putting those strict boundaries in, and things like that. And I think within that as well is knowing when your time in a certain place is up.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
So I was having a conversation with my colleague recently who took early retirement, which, Lord Jesus, is my portion, please.
Oh gosh.
But she took early retirement, and she was kind of just like, she's done the things that she wanted to do in this place. And it got me thinking about the fact that you know, we really do have loyalty to companies often, and I ain't gonna lie to you, these companies are not always loyal to us, right?
That's true.
So this colleague always used to joke about the fact that people will work for like 20, 30 years in like companies, and they'll leave and there'll be a tagline on the bottom of an email. So the day before she left, we got an email, and of course, you scroll to the bottom, there's that one line saying, yeah, thanks for her service, hope she has a nice retirement. And it just, like, it made me laugh, because I just thought it is so true, like how quickly things move on. And that's not to say you shouldn't be loyal to your company in some ways, but also make sure that it's not to the detriment of your career progression, I guess, really. So my manager always used to be like, shop around. She's like, look around for different jobs, different things, and that means that you kind of know, if you're looking at similar roles, even if you're not looking to move, if you look at similar roles, it means you know how much you should be paid roughly for the role that you're doing, right? Also, talk to your colleagues about their pay. Again, gonna come back to that one. But yeah, look for other roles. But also, she was saying that before this role that she's in now, she had never been in a job for more than 2 years. And it was getting experience of different things, but also it meant that she moved a lot faster than she probably would have if she'd stayed in one organization. And you know, that's not always the same for everyone. Sometimes it does make sense to just stay in one place for, I don't know, 10, 20 years. But just evaluate what your options are, I think, is what I'm really trying to say. Because, for example, in terms of pay, often you can get a bigger pay increase by moving rather than staying in the same organization. So
agreed. And I think also evaluate what you want in your role, because as we said before, you're spending most of your time there. So
the thing is, it's not even spending most of your time, because I mean, a lot of people work part-time, a lot of people don't work at all, like, you know, by choice. And it's not even that, it's just that this is your life. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, so that's kind of what I was going to go on to. But in terms of, a job isn't just for you to be there, do the work and go home. Like, if that's what you want out of it, then that's fine. But I think it goes back to what we were speaking about, well, 2 weeks ago, of the ikigai thing, of like, you know, being your passion or what you're good at and things like that. It fulfills different things. And so it's just remembering that, because you can so easily get bogged down in the day-to-day tasks of what you need to do, of what's on your checklist, but actually how much are you getting out of the role, as well as what you're giving in. And it goes back to what you were saying, tell me about the loyalty, and sometimes it's a bit kind of overrated. And I think especially prior to, you know, us starting work, people used to work in a company for 40 years or so, and that was the done thing. It was like, you go into this job, you do that for the rest of your life, and that's how it worked. But I think nowadays things are moving different, they're changing, and, you know, people are working, there's a lot more, I guess, self-employment, and, well, with 0-hour contracts and part-time working and things like that, but also, as you were saying, for even people working full-time, of moving around, and it's not so frowned upon. As I remember, like, when I was looking for work, and it was always like, oh, make sure you spend a long time there, because it looks bad on your CV if you're like moving around. But actually, you know, having a couple of years, or like 5 years or so in a company and then moving elsewhere, doesn't look that bad. I guess if it's like 6 months here, 6 months there, you obviously can't learn the job and do it well. But
depends what kind of work you're in. But
so I think it's just reminding yourself of what you're getting out of it, as well as what you're giving. You don't want to give all the time.
But I think also it's just realizing that people want different things out of you know, their work. Some people literally solely money, that's it, that's all they want, they just want to get in, do the job, go. But actually, you know, there can be so many more benefits of work, and it's really important to understand what motivates you as well, I think, and that's how you get fulfillment out of your job. So if it is money, okay, cool, like, that's great, find a job that pays you well. Like, if it's also about I don't know, getting a company car or something, cool, find a job that will let you do that. If it's about the people that you work with, or, you know, doing something that you're really passionate about, then that's all cool, but just make sure that your job is actually doing that, because I think that often we get burnt out when we're doing stuff that isn't fulfilling. You know, our lives are busy for like pretty much for most of us. We do live busy lives, but it's about what you're filling your time with that affects kind of.
And obviously it is easier said than done to be like, if you're not,
Just get a
if you're
job.
not getting this, then go get a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
Obviously it's hard, but I think so often people stay in the job because it's almost the situation of better the devil you know, that you know the bugbears, you know what you like, and you can get on with these people, and so you just feel like, oh, what's the point of me changing or something like that, especially like, for example, with the lady who I spoke to who was like, oh yeah, not really, and I was like, oh okay, surely you could have found something else, kind of a thing is what I was thinking. And yeah, it is easier to say that, and especially if you're tied to a location or something, like
especially in a pandemic.
Yeah. But yeah, I think sometimes the like not knowing what else is out there can hold people back a lot, and maybe too much so in some circumstances. So you go.
I was gonna move on. So going back to the pay conversation, I think I said we're gonna park that or something like that, which is work lingo. Yeah, I was in a meeting where basically I joined the meeting halfway through and they kept talking about a car park, and I was like, what are we talking about here? But it turns out that they had created like a virtual car park that they were parking conversations in.
Ew.
Yeah, I know.
I do not like that.
But I think I've joked about it so much. I've
Ew.
joked about it so much that I've actually just picked up that wording, and I'm like, ugh. Right, anyway.
Like, what? They'd just be like, let's put that in the car park.
Yeah, we'll put that in the car park, genuinely.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not about
And
that.
I spent the first like 15 minutes being in that meeting like, which car park are we talking about?
How did you figure it out?
Because someone had started writing post-it notes and putting them like on a piece of paper.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh. We're talking about a conversation.
Oh wow.
Right.
Let's put that in the car park.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying about
need to put that
pay.
in the bin. But anyway, pay. So pay is such a taboo conversation, especially in the UK. And I think it's because we just put so much importance on people's financial situations.
Yeah.
And I think that means that it's a very vulnerable thing to actually be open about how much you earn, right? However, we need to know our worth in terms of, well, just know your worth, really. But yeah, in life. But really, I'm talking about it in work and in a job. Know how much you should be earning, but someone in your position,
what's normal for.
yeah, exactly, right. So within a lot of organizations, so for example within the team that I work in, we have bands that we get paid like within a certain amount, so it can span like £10,000, but that's a very big difference, right? Which means that people can be right at the start of that band, people can be at the end of that band. It's all dependent on experience, whether you're line managing people, for example, stuff like that. But within that, sometimes you have to ask for more, right? And you have to be able to ask for a pay increase and things like that. But you almost have to evidence it a lot of the time, and you need to be able to say, well, this and this is why I think that actually you should consider giving me my flowers, giving me my coins, and actually paying me more. And I think all the kind of the review stuff and all of that stuff can back it up, but also if you understand what other people are earning, it allows you to kind of pitch yourself. And I think that's why I was talking about looking at other jobs, but also within your own job, try and understand what it is that people are earning. And I guess if they're like earning way above you or way less than you, like why is that sort of thing.
Have you spoken specifically with your colleagues about pay?
It's come up in conversations. I've never been like, how much do you earn, just so that I can work it out, I don't know. Some people might be confident enough to do that, but it's not, I haven't.
Yeah.
But because I look after some budgets and things like that, I have sight of some of my colleagues pay, and understand what they get paid, but also, for example, additional roles coming up. So like we recently recruited, or we are recruiting some people to work like with me in my team. So we had to kind of try and pitch how much they were going to get paid. So you know, thankfully they don't just pluck it out of thin air and be like, yeah, this person's going to get paid this. So I kind of got a bit of more of an understanding of how they actually do pay and how they work it out.
I think I agree with the know your worth thing, and I think the best way is looking around, because as you said, you can jump in salary by moving company or jobs oftentimes, and I think that's also where you can kind of gauge, especially if there's new roles in your company or in your team or whatever that are doing basically what you do. It might be the same, it might be slightly different, but that's the best way to see kind of what you should be earning, or what other people who are doing the same thing as you are being offered, because it can be quite eye-opening if, you know, there's somebody who's got no experience who's then paid the same thing as you and you've been doing it for the last 3 years. It's like, oh, how did that happen? Because you know, I was expecting to be more, or, you know, as Temi was saying, if you're line managing somebody, and, you know, this hopefully doesn't happen, but if you're like on the same pay as the person you're line managing, it's like, oh, that's not quite right, it should be higher. But have you
Depends on the situation, but
but have you had to or have you negotiated pay at you know, your company or whatever?
I've asked for a pay rise.
And how
before.
did it go?
It went well. I got the pay rise. But yeah, I did ask for a pay rise because so when I started in that role, I was kind of put on a band that was below the kind of standard rate for my job. And then, so I was kind of like, okay, can we talk about how I get to that place, basically?
So, just for the people, why were you put on a lower? Why did you accept it on a lower?
Because I didn't have the experience for that job, I guess. I had some experience, obviously, otherwise I probably wouldn't have gotten the job. But yeah, that was why I was kind of like lower than the standard pay. Also, that standard pay rate is generally for people who have been in the role for a little bit of time. But obviously I was just starting the role, so it was very usual that people would be started on slightly less than the standard rate. So yeah, it was honestly quite an easy conversation, to be honest. My manager was like, I'd already been thinking about it and talking to her boss about it. So she was like, we'll see what we can do. And yeah, it was a pretty easy conversation, but I think it was also that, you know, when you're like, okay, how do I bring this up? Like, I don't want to seem greedy or not grateful, I guess. But then I was like, no, I'd quite like more money. So
yeah, I think so I had a similar situation where I asked for a pay rise and I did get it. Not as much as I hoped, and obviously with HR and stuff there's only specific things that they can do, so it was like fair enough, but also I was like, I wish it could be a bit more, for various reasons. Obviously I'm not going to get into what's happening
well, Tony, know your worth.
But I think that's also where it comes into knowing what's your worth, because also if the company or organization or whatever really do value you, then they would want to try and keep you if there was a situation where you could be going elsewhere. Obviously I'm not saying that you should like threaten to leave all the time because that's not gonna work. Disclaimer. Just be like, see you, bye.
Disclaimer, if that doesn't work for you, it's not, don't come to us.
No, because that's the thing, because there's lots of people looking for jobs, so you know, there can be a pool of new recruits and stuff, which obviously people would have to train up, and that's where you having experience, knowing the role, knowing the team that you're in, etc., comes into play, and where that helps. But also I think this is really important to kind of document everything for the reviews and stuff like that, because I know like when I'm working I'm just doing my work, so then I forget that I just had this like massive thing that I had to look after, and I did that and I got through it and it was fine, and I did a really good job on it and heard back from other people, well done on that. But it just comes and goes, because it's like another thing in the sea of things that you have to do. And if you're not writing it down, even for yourself to look back and be like, oh wow, yeah, I remember doing that, especially because these kind of things might not come up very often. They might be kind of a once in a blue moon type of thing that comes up. So yeah, I think it's really good to have those kind of things written down for those, annual reviews or whatever you might have for yourself, for when then you can look at you want to update your CV, you can add in those kind of things. So yeah, it's beneficial in more ways than one to really know kind of what activities you are doing in your role.
Document everything is a piece of advice that you gave to me when someone tried to do me dirty at work.
Because I've been there, they did me dirty, and now I do document everything. So yeah.
And so basically, Tony told me to become that really annoying person at work who after every meeting is like, you said you're going to do this, you said you're going to do that, I said I was going to do this. And it was such a good piece of advice. So I'm not really going to go into the details of what happened, but essentially someone tried to like blame something on me that kind of just wasn't my fault. And that just put me in a bit of a kind of tight situation, and it all worked out fine in the end. But this was someone that I'd been working quite closely with, and I was a little bit like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe they did this to me. But I think that it kind of opened my eyes to the fact that people are selfish, and that's not in a don't trust anyone, like it's me, myself and I. It's a shark eat shark. Dog eat dog. Wow. World. I'm really just...
I was on a hold. You said me, myself and I. I'm singing Beyonce in my head. You're like on a shark eat shark world. Like, okay.
Anyway, all my friends are sharks. That's what you should have sang for that one.
Yeah, but I was on the Beyonce. That's what, and
anyway.
you were wrong anyway. It should have been dog eat dog.
All
so
right,
what
Tony.
do you want me to be like? Who let the dogs out? Baha Boys. Baha Men. What's the band called? I forgot. Who let the dog? I'm not gonna sing that.
What just happened? I feel like I just watched you like, I don't know. It's not even
goes on in my brain.
Just...
a couple of weeks ago where you're like, you do that in your brain more than you do out loud.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's not in a don't trust people kind of like way, but just protect yourself, I think is what I would say, and make sure that you do cover yourself essentially. And so yeah, document everything, not just for reviews, but also just for peace of mind.
Yeah, and the reason I gave you that advice is obviously because I went through something at work which was not a very nice situation, and it was kind of the same thing but more extreme. And I was just like, I guess I kind of went into the workplace naive that, people are there to help you progress, look out for you, want the best for you. And I'm not saying that people don't, but at the end of the day, people look out for number one first. And, it kind of sounds cynical or whatever, but it is reality. Like, I don't want people who are like me going into the workplace to come across the same thing. So it's just... And not even, like, I don't mean document everything in terms of this person came in late or they didn't do this or whatever.
Don't be snitch.
I don't mean like that, but it is what Temi said. If you said you're going to do something or somebody else has said they're going to do something, basically, if it's only said in a meeting or on Teams or something, as in spoken rather than written down, there's nothing to back up your point of what's been said, and then it comes down however 2-3 months down the line, and it's like, oh, why was this not done, or why was this not checked, or whatever, and actually it was, but it's just there's nothing to show that. So yeah, keep the receipts, and you don't have to do it for every single little thing, but if something's a bigger piece of work or something is gonna be, I don't know, tested or whatever it might be, I think it is really important to just really define things. And sometimes as well in meetings, what I've had before is like people are talking and you think you understand what they mean, or it's not quite clear, you're not entirely sure. It's just best there and then to just be like, so just to confirm, following our meeting or following our call or whatever, you're doing this, I'm doing that, this is going to be happening at this time, whatever it is, to clarify the situation and just make sure you've understood it, because it can be so easy to be in the conversation and be like, yeah, and then you finish the call and you're like, okay, so wait, what exactly do I need to do now, or how exactly do I need to process this?
That looks very different for different jobs.
Yeah.
Obviously we're talking more, I guess, it's corporate kind of roles, I don't know, but
like office jobs, you mean?
But even office jobs aren't all like ours. So yeah, it was going to look different for, completely different roles. But yeah, back yourself, cover yourself, keep the receipts. Really, I think is what we're saying.
I think that also goes into kind of work environments, and I think it can be very hard to change a work environment, especially if it's one that's kind of making you feel not very good, or like dragging you down, or making you feel some kind of way about going into work. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but saying like, be aware of what your work climate is like. If it's maybe a certain person that you actually don't like seeing at work, why is that? Or you know,
also I think don't be afraid to be countercultural. It's something that I would say as well. Sometimes it takes that one person. I feel like a motivational speaker. But sometimes it does take that one person to do things a bit differently. That one person to be like, I don't know. I guess most places have the, do you want a cup of tea? And I know we're all working from home and stuff, but like, do you know, just little things like that actually that make people feel more positive, because it's one of those things that it almost pays forward. And actually,
I think. Sorry, you hadn't finished your sentence.
It's all right.
I think it's refreshing because. And I'm thinking of a situation when I was at work and then somebody new came in and they were like really bubbly and like really lifted the atmosphere, and it's the same social sect person that I'm talking about, but yeah, and also she had come from a different background, a different line of work, so it was just a bit newer, fresher thinking. So it's not always somebody new coming in, but I think that can be quite a moment of like, oh, okay, we can think about things differently, or we can do things differently, or why are we actually doing this in the same way we've been doing it this whole time? But yeah, it can the work atmosphere can really like almost make or break your time at work. And I think 100%. Just being aware of that and figuring out what it is. It might be a good thing or bad thing. It's not necessarily always doom and gloom. It might be something great that you like about your workplace, and actually you might be thinking of moving somewhere else but don't want to lose that kind of culture, or how can you bring it into the new place, or whatever it might be. But I
think just before we wrap up, because I feel like we could talk about this for a lot longer, but something that you just said there also reminded me about, I think especially within my first, I guess, year of leaving education and starting full-time work, was the fact that I was new, and I was so conscious of the fact that it's like I was inexperienced. I didn't understand particularly the area that I was working in. I didn't necessarily know like workplace okay, like obviously I've worked jobs, and I have actually worked office jobs before
the role that you're talking about.
Before the role that I was talking about, but I didn't necessarily know the etiquette of the place that I was in, stuff like that, and I was so conscious about that. But you were talking about that new person with like a different way of thinking, and actually that is so valuable, because often organizations and companies get into a certain way of thinking and a certain mindset and a certain way of doing things, but actually it's that innovation that's needed, and it's that new thing. So I know a lot of our listeners are kind of that age where maybe they're moving into working and things like that. Don't be afraid of being the new person. Don't be afraid of asking the questions, and asking the stupid questions as well, because so often I've asked a stupid question and then realised that actually the fundamental thinking just hasn't been done,
or other people weren't even sure, or
exactly. When I first started my grad scheme, my colleagues would just use me as like a scapegoat basically, and be like, oh, Temmie's new, she doesn't understand this thing, and like it turned into a joke. But it was actually so funny, because you just realise that people are almost afraid to ask questions, because it's like, you should know this, and then like everyone else will be like, yeah, I didn't know that either, sort of thing.
It's funny though, because sometimes you realise the longer someone's been there, especially, the more they just blag stuff. Like sometimes obviously people who've been there longer have more experience, they know other people, they have connections, blah blah blah, but sometimes you just really realise some people are really good at blagging their way through stuff.
I think most people.
I've definitely been in meetings multiple times where I've just been like, well, that was wrong, and that was wrong, and that was wrong. Like everything you just said was was wrong.
Listen,
and it's knowing when to speak up and obviously bring it up, and knowing when to just let it slide and just note it for later. But yeah, it's interesting because especially when you are new or just starting out, you can feel unsure of yourself, but I think you said earlier, back yourself. But it's true, just have the confidence, and, you know, if you don't know, ask, or, you know, keep a watch on stuff and learn. And find those allies that Tammy was talking about as well. It is really helpful. Someone who can kind of take you under their wing, or, you know, show you the ropes, that kind of thing.
Mentorship as well. Yeah. Find mentors. And it doesn't have to be like a formal thing, but it was really funny because I remember one day I realised that I can just email people and ask for like meetings with them. You know, it's in people who are like completely outside my scope of work and what I'm actually doing. But it's like, okay, I see someone with a cool job title, I can just email them and ask them, okay, can I know a little bit more about your job? How can I get there, I guess, really. And just have that kind of conversation with people, and it's so easy to do. And sometimes I think we kind of can talk ourselves out of it a little bit, but yeah, make the most of the opportunities that you have. In summary, because
job shadowing and stuff.
Ask people to shadow. It's a bit harder when working from home.
A
little bit weird, but yeah, just seek opportunities. And yeah, back yourself. Make sure you're the annoying person who documents everything. But yeah, also just make sure that like you do have fun if that's what you want to do at work. I was going to say
that as well. It's not all just about the work. No. It's about building the relationships with people as well.
So be like, no.
And on that note, see you guys.
Bye guys.
I'd like to know, do you disagree with anything that we said, and why? I'm intrigued, so let us know. What do you want to know?
I would like to know, if you currently are working, or if you have ever worked, what would your advice be to someone who's kind of, I guess, starting out their career? What would your piece of advice be? And if you are kind of starting your career, if you're yet to start your career, what are you looking forward to? Like, what are you excited about? We'd love for you to join the conversation on our socials. We are on Instagram at theekopod and on Facebook too. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. So in the meantime, take care.